Speaking of Afghanistan, we got a lot to talk about with Afghanistan. You know, the big topic last week, kind of the framing theme that we talked about were the actions, negligence, the actions of the Biden administration, the actions of the military leadership, the actions of the State Department. Were they negligence, meaning did they accidentally mess up? Did they make a mistake? Or were they intentional mistakes? Were they intentional sabotage of our interests? And there's a lot of reason to believe that there was some intentionality to it. And, of course, we've got some more stories to share with you and some more details on some of the stories that we previously had shared with you that will really kind of round this out. For example, did you hear that the U.S. military actually knew there was going to be a terror attack at the Kabul Airport last week? I mean, we actually, if you were paying attention to the news, we actually heard that because on Wednesday, I don't know if you remember this, but on Wednesday, the day before the attack, the State Department issued a warning to U.S. nationals to avoid traveling to the airport in Kabul. And they actually told the folks that were waiting outside to leave the area immediately because there was an expected terror attack. Now, on Thursday, as we all know, a suicide bomber came up and blew himself up near the Abbey Gate at the Kabul airport and ended up killing 13 Americans. We gave you their names. We read them on the air last week, as well as probably scores of Afghans who were also in the area. What's interesting is the Taliban allowed that suicide. Remember how no American citizens could get through to the airport? People with passports and stuff, they couldn't get through the checkpoints, the Taliban checkpoints. So how do you think this suicide bomber got through the checkpoints? Do you think they didn't notice that he was wearing a suicide vest? A bomb? I don't think so. Taliban let him through the perimeter. Now, of course, our U.S. Marines who were guarding the outer perimeter of the airport didn't let the bomber get through that and into the inside of the airport, which I'm sure was the ultimate goal, and that's why he blew himself up outside the gate. Well, some more information has come out from some Marines there on the ground communicating with some folks here in the United States, and some information has come out. And we can't confirm this, but it certainly is an interesting piece of information, and that is that there were actually radio transmission on the internal radios of the Marines that there was about to be a suicide bomb, and there was even a countdown, supposedly. And the countdown said apparently 10 minutes, there's going to be an IED that goes off. 2 minutes, there's going to be an IED that goes off. And then they said at 16:27, that'd be 4:27 p.m., an IED is going to go off. And then finally, at 5:30 that afternoon, the suicide bomber blew himself up and the IED actually went off. Now, let's round this out just a little bit more, okay? Not only did they know there was going to be a suicide bomb, not only does it sound like they knew almost exactly when it was going to occur, but how about this? And this will tell you they did know exactly when it was going to occur. They are reporting, many news agencies are reporting, and this is something said by the former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for the Western Hemisphere Affairs, Roger Pardo Maurer, said that the U.S. Department of Defense already knew who the bomber was ahead of time and when and where the attack would occur. He said this, I believe, was on Univision. It was in Spanish. I know that, the interview where he revealed this information. And it's actually being widely reported now that a U.S. Predator drone had the kill shot. They had the lock on this suicide bomber as he was approaching the airport. So they could have fired some kind of missile. I don't know, Hellfire. I don't know if they've got anything a little bit less explosive than a Hellfire that they could shoot, because obviously he was probably moving through a crowded area. But they could have taken this guy out by Predator drone. And the reports in the news are that permission to shoot was requested and was denied, but guess who denied it? The Taliban. So now apparently our military is taking orders from the Taliban. We can't shoot from our Predator drone because the Taliban says we can't. And because the State Department was in the process of negotiating with the Taliban, then they said, no, we can't shoot. You can't allow this Predator drone to take out this suicide bomber. And instead, the suicide bomber takes out 13 U.S. service members, as well as scores, I'm sure, of innocent Afghans. So we couldn't take out that terrorist who was coming to blow himself up. But remember the story from last week? on Sunday, August 29th. Who did we take out? Remember that? We read the names to you. Now, this is even being more widely reported this week and being confirmed by Associated Press. And that is, one of our drones took out a nice Afghan family, and actually a family full of people who had helped us, people who had been interpreters, who had applied for those special immigrant visas, and they took out a family of 10. Remember, there were 4 young children. There were a couple of students who were also young, but 4 really young children, ages like 2 and 4. Unbelievable. They killed almost this entire family. And, of course, the relatives are just distraught, and they're speaking out. One of the relatives, the whole family, by the way, is the Ahmadi family. So this is the family that we killed all these people. There's no explanation of why. But Ramal Ahmadi, who's a brother of one of the dead, says that, quote, they have to give us answers. Is our blood so worthless we don't even get an explanation? Now, he said the missile hit his brother's car as it pulled up to the family home, and the children were running out to greet the car. I mean, can you believe that? Now, of course, the U.S., our government's saying, oh, well, the car was laden with explosives, and there was a secondary blast, and that proves that these were really terrorists. This wasn't a young family. These were terrorists. Well, another one of the brothers, his name is Amal, he's saying, hey, if the car was filled with explosives like the Americans say, why didn't these cylinders that are very close by, these gas cylinders, propane cylinders, why didn't they explode? And by the way, how could this wall still be standing if there was a car full of explosives? If this was an IED car that was going to be blown up and kill a bunch of people, how is anything around here still standing if there was this huge secondary explosion? And what it sounds like is there was no secondary explosion. It sounds like that's a convenient excuse when they hit the wrong folks. They killed a family. Every person killed in that strike was related to the Ahmadis. Amal lost his 3-year-old daughter, and he asked how. I mean, think about the distress these people must be feeling. Just no explanation, no justification. And he said the Americans have such high technology they can see an ant on the ground, but they couldn't see that they were shooting a yard full of children. I mean, how does that kind of a mistake happen? Now, again, I told you some of these folks worked for us, and they'd actually applied for those special immigrant visas to try to get out of the country. Now, this is not anything new, by the way. In 2015, a guy named Daniel Hale, who's now been sentenced to 45 months in prison for leaking these documents, actually leaked some documents revealing that during a 5-month period between the years 2012 and 2013, the Obama years, remember, 90% of the people killed by U.S. drones were civilians. U.S. drone strikes still regularly kill civilians. There's no oversight, and for the most part, there's no reporting on it either. The only reason we know about this particular incident is because it occurred in Kabul. Many of the incidents occur in remote villages where there are no reporters, no press coverage, and nobody ever hears about these poor people who are innocent and just get slaughtered. We've got some more on the Afghan story when we come back. Thank you for listening to the Morgan Streetman Show. We hope you enjoyed what you heard, and if you did, please click like and subscribe to help us out. And remember that we recommend that you exercise your brain at least once a week.